Hey everybody, welcome back to another business analysis video. If you're just joining for the first time, welcome to the channel. My name is Pippa and I've been a business analyst for almost a decade and I share business analysis knowledge. Today's video will be looking at projects, the birth of project, a deep dive into the birth of projects, how the projects come about, thereby creating the work that we do as business analysts. If there are no projects, then what are we doing, right? Projects really come about when an opportunity has been identified. So I want you to think of the start or the genesis of a project like a seed, a tiny little seed. It starts small, it starts like an idea, it starts like a need, right? It starts like an opportunity, and then it flourishes into a project. But then it needs to be nurtured by both internal and external environmental factors, right? Things inside the organization that would trigger the start of a project, such as opportunities identified, and things outside the organization that would trigger the start of a project, such as things that are outside our control, legal rules, trends, things like that. These can start or create projects. So these are the two factors that really impact project start. That is the internal and external environmental factors. There are various techniques that business analysts adopt here to do business analysis work. For internal environmental factors, we are looking at, one example is the most, which is the mission, the objective, the strategy, and the tactics of the organization. We are looking within the organization at the mission of the organization. What are we trying to achieve? What is our goal, right? In order for us to reach our goals, what are the things we need to address internally so that we can reach our goals, right? And then from an external environmental factor perspective, things outside. One technique that we use as business analysts is the PESTLE analysis, which stands for the political, economical, socio-cultural, technological, legal, and environmental impacts. Things outside the organization that can impact the way it works, the way it reaches its goals and its objectives, its missions, right? So let's start by examining these internal factors, okay? Again, the components within an organization that can create project opportunities, yeah? One of them includes the strategic objectives. The project needs to align with the company's strategic goals, right? For example, the company could be looking at expanding, looking at expansion and innovation, right? So that it reaches its goals, it performs better, it sells its products better, right? So that's such strategic objective of the organization of expanding. Maybe the organization is only available within the UK, for instance, and we want to expand worldwide. This can create a project, right? We need resources, we need people, we need to explore these external areas or the worldwide locations that the organization want to expand into. So this may well be a catalyst for the initiation of a project. Another example of internal environmental factor is the operational needs, okay? So projects will often arise out of that necessity to improve processes. As business analysts, we are looking at improving processes. We're identifying current processes and looking at improving them. This is the operational need, really, that the organization can look at. We can look at enhancing productivity or addressing any other internal challenges that the organization could be facing. A third one is resources. Internally, when you think of resources, you think of people, right? Human resources, financial resources, technological resources, all these things that we need in the organization, in different departments, different functions that will help the organization reach its objectives, its goals, its strategies, right? So these sort of things can also drive the birth of projects. So I hope those three examples have helped for internal environmental factors that impact projects, that triggers the start of project, right? Now, for external environmental factors or external factors, really, there are so many examples you can look at from the pestle analysis. So again, external is looking at things outside the organization that can inspire project opportunities. So one example is market trends. The shift in market, the shift in the emergence of new trends, it can really necessitate projects to keep the business competitive. So when I talk about market trend, what exactly do I mean by that? This really is the general direction in which the buying and selling behavior of the industry or a sector is headed, right? And what really impacts this is the customers, really. So one example of market trends could be the rise of e-commerce. A lot of physical shops, right, might start to explore how market trends are moving towards e-commerce, bringing their retail store shopfront online. So that's one example there of a project that could start from this external environmental impact, looking at market trends. Yeah. Another example of external environmental factor is the regulatory changes when we look at the legal part of the pestle analysis. Yep. Regulatory changes, legal or regulatory modifications, these will require the business to adapt and again lead to project initiation. So one example of these regulatory changes could be, let's explore GDPR, right? In the past, it was referred to as data protection, right? But then GDPR came about in 2018, in EU in 2018. And this regulation was designed to improve personal data protection and privacy for individuals within the EU. So this introduction of GDPR really had a huge impact on businesses anywhere in the world, right? All these businesses that handle data that concerned EU citizens. So they had to adapt to that. As a result of that, companies had to initiate projects. So I don't know, in that period, you could have explored business analysis or business analyst jobs, and you will see that a lot of organizations were asking for GDPR BAs, GDPR business analysts. So this sort of regulatory changes, using this example of GDPR introduction in 2018, really triggered a lot of projects around organizations that handled data for EU citizens so that they can be in compliance with all the new regulations. The third one we can explore as an internal environmental factor that triggers the start of a project is customer demands. It can be sort of relating to market trends, right? But customer demands, customer new needs can also fuel that inception of a project. So one example is increasing demand for eco-friendly products and practices, right? The society has become more conscious about environmental sustainability, about global warming, about all that. So customers are demanding that organizations do the same and try to focus on moving towards that eco-friendly products and all those things just to help the environment. For instance, a clothing manufacturer might initiate a project to source more sustainable materials for making their products. You can see even in McDonald's and various other shops, they've stopped using straws, plastic straws. Everyone is moving towards paper straws, and even the plastic spoons, plastic containers are being replaced by paper, really, just to protect the environment. So this is because of customer demands, and people are starting to look at using eco-friendly products. So in conclusion, really, projects don't just come out of thin air. There are things that will impact the organization outside and inside it that will then trigger projects to start. And a lot of times, if the organization does not take into consideration these things and ignore these impacts, it would really affect the way that they do their business. A lot of businesses will go out of business, stop running because of these ignoring these impacts. Okay, so if I think of a couple of examples, I always like to give this example of Blockbuster versus Netflix. Imagine what Blockbuster would have been like if it had identified the internal and external environmental factors that would impact his business in the future, with regards to customer demands, technological advancements, right? And people just not no longer interested in CDs and DVDs and renting, and we now have live streaming via Netflix. So I guess maybe if Blockbuster had addressed that, or looked at starting projects, or looking at exploring these areas to make his business to really meet the demands of both the external environment. There's so many other examples I can give, such as, remember when we were doing BBMs on BlackBerry phones, and in comparison to now that we're all using WhatsApp, imagine what BlackBerry could have explored on that area, rather than leaving the BBM messaging aspect of BlackBerry just only to BlackBerry phones, and then WhatsApp just being available to any or every type of mobile phone, right? There are so many examples, but I hope that these have really helped you to understand how projects start, thereby creating work for project teams, not just business analysts, but people that will come together to make the project work and make the organization work better, increase profits, and just generally sell its products. That's it from me for today. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. As always, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video. You don't know who it might help. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Peace.